Isn't it weird that after you spend the last few days being a student, suddenly you're not only expected to have a full-time job, to be an adult, to start earning money, and just figure out your life? I understand how daunting job applications can be, especially after graduation, because it seems like you don't know when it's gonna end. And this uncertainty is just eating you up inside. And you just kind of like out in the world expected to be responsible and be a full-on adult. Hi everyone, thanks for stopping by. My name is Glory, and today I'm going to be sharing with you some job searching tips for fresh graduates that I learned along the way after job searching that got me out of the job searching rut. Which I also made a video about my experience, which is kind of very raw and honest of the hardships along the way, so check that video out if you're interested. Just for some background context, I am in the architecture industry, but I believe that these tips can be applied to any other industry as well, so hopefully it'll be helpful. So let's get into the tips. Number 1, cold emails. So I didn't even know what the hell a cold email was until a tutor brought this up. A cold email is basically sending a company an email asking for work, even though you have no initial contact with them or no reference. This usually does not end up working out well most of the time, because just imagine the sheer volume of cold emails that these companies are getting if people are just emailing them every single day. Therefore, don't worry if your email does not get a reply. I made this mistake, as you can say, because nobody told me that it wasn't a really effective route. I sent cold emails to so many places that I've never heard of, which kind of was a waste of time, especially I wasn't that tactful in what I was doing. So focus on the places that are posting adverts on certain positions that you're actually interested in applying for, such as these job listing websites where there's like tons of positions that are being advertised, and you can also talk to a potential reference as well. At the same time though, I also recognize that sending cold emails can be a potential way of landing jobs if you're really tactful about it, but I would recommend that fresh graduates, maybe you could start there, but just recognize the fact that it's not always going to be that effective. And you might be wasting a lot of bullets if you're just sending it like really general emails to loads of companies without really knowing specifically what you're looking for. Number 2, check for grammar and spelling mistakes. Also, for example, a portfolio. So I know spelling mistakes and grammar can just seem like a really small thing that doesn't really matter, but actually it can be seen as a really big deal, especially as companies like to think of their employees as really attentive to detail, especially if you're applying for jobs where attention to detail is a really big deal. For example, like if I'm applying for architecture jobs and I'm looking at technical drawings all day, and it's really important to like be really detail oriented. So before you send everything off in an email with your CV and for example, your portfolio and a cover letter, make sure to put it through like a checking system like Grammarly or some website, just to get all of your grammatical and spelling mistakes out of the way. For jobs that require other documents such as a portfolio, check to see if you've made any mistakes in the captions or the layout, if the pages seem too overcrowded, or what each page is trying to communicate to the recruiter. Sometimes if you do make a mistake in what you're sending, for example, if you type the name of the email wrong in the body of the email, which is really unfortunate and embarrassing, but hey, we've all been there, and I fully recognize that I've done that as well. Just send a follow-up email to own up to your mistake and just say, hey, I'm really sorry, I knew I made a mistake, I hope this does not like affect my application, whatever. Instead of just like leaving there and just saying, oh well, like this application is doomed, I have no chance of getting in this company. Number 3, small companies versus big companies. So this was something that I learned on the way when I was applying to different companies for architecture and while doing interviews for small companies versus big companies. I realized that smaller companies are very specific in the candidate that they're looking for because they have limited time and resources to train up that individual, to train up an entry-level potato like me and you. Therefore, when I was applying, I realized that since these firms have very specific requirements for their ideal candidate, for example, having experience in certain softwares or previous work experience in a subsector of that industry, so perhaps it is a good practice to look at small firms you want to potentially join in the future if you're studying right now, and tailor your skills accordingly if this is somewhere you really want to work at. Therefore, a lot of these rejection emails that I got from these smaller firms was always along the same lines. So if you really like your personality and who you are as a person, but unfortunately your skills are just not the right fit for our company at the moment. And I kind of get it because At first, the rejection emails were really painful because I felt like it was a target to who I am as a person, and I kind of took it personally. But then slowly I just stopped taking it personally because it didn't really define my self-worth if it was just about like the skill set and not really who I am as a person, especially if they already said they like my personality, but it's just the skill set that didn't match. On the other hand, bigger companies obviously have more resources and time to train up entry-level small potatoes like us. So I feel like they tend to focus more on the candidate's personality and character rather than a lot of technical skills, especially if they can train you up when you enter the firm. However, the difficulty with bigger companies obviously is that it tends to be quite corporate, and sometimes it can be quite difficult to find job listings for these companies online. So in some ways, it's really about the connections you make and also just through luck. Number 4, LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is a really good way of just finding references and people who work in the same sector in your bubble. So for example, I graduated from the Bartlett School of Architecture at UCL, and based on my connections with people, I can see who works at a certain company that I'm thinking of applying, and this person went to the same school as me, so I can just reach out to them for some like advice or thoughts, and potentially to use them as a reference. I'm sure all of you are really tech savvy to just go on LinkedIn and see when you search up a company, you can like kind of look at the people who works there, and you can just generally like find who works there that kind of went to the same school as you and all that. Also, apparently, Easy Apply on LinkedIn is not that great because they don't really get to see the entire depth of you as a person. So it just seems really casual as an application. I mean, for some of them, it does yield out to something in the end, but most of the time, I don't really hear back from Easy Apply. So I feel like it's just really good as a reference/connection tool with people. Number 5. Using references. So following up from my LinkedIn point, my friend made this point that actually using references is one of the most important things that you can do when you're looking for jobs. Because in general, if you think about it, psychologically speaking, people are more likely to hire someone through a reference that people have given them rather than just hiring a random person on the internet. So really like during your time at school, maybe like go to like networking events or careers fair and just talk to people and just find some references, and I think that will be really helpful. And I think that is something that I did not do enough. Number 6, prepare for an interview. So if you get an interview, first of all, congratulations, and do not panic. Think of it as a learning opportunity. So before you go to an interview, the most important thing is going through your cover letter and other documents you have. So for example, for me, that will be my portfolio that I have to present at the interview. Go through the company's website to show that you know what they're about as a company, what their values are, what their ethos are, and some projects that they worked on. So you can just talk about like certain projects that you're actually really interested that this company does. And then when you show up to the interview, you can ask certain questions about them to show that you did your research about the company and also just your enthusiasm for working there. Especially when they say, do you have any questions for us? Because they want to see you as a very active individual that does your research and not just someone who's really passive and it's just like, oh, just hand me the job, I need a job, I need money. It's also really good to practice questions that you know that the company is going to ask you irregardless. For example, the good old, tell us about yourself, which please don't tell them your entire life story because no one's going to sit there for 10 minutes listening to your entire life story. The thing I would say when they say tell me about yourself is like listing your achievements and why you want to work there, and then like kind of like how you got here and the achievements you have at school and all that. Or what are your strengths? Or why do you want to join insert company name? This is really just normal questions to see if you've done your homework, just like attending this interview. Or why should we hire you? What makes you unique? Plus a lot more of these like general questions that I'm sure you can find online. And just as a general note, just make sure you're always talking aligned with the company's values and how you're going to add value to them as an employee. So you're basically just like, you're just persuading them and letting them know why they should hire you. Number 7, doing your research early or late depending on your industry or sector. So each industry does things very differently. So for some industries, you may need to start doing your research like very early on, even like a year in advance for places that have entry-level positions for fresh graduates. For example, my friend is working at a pharmaceutical company right now and doing a lot of lab and research, and she applied for this position like around a year ago. And I also have people who graduated and they're applying for positions like a year later, so now they're kind of like doing a gap year in between. So for some other sectors, it can be super spontaneous. like architecture and where I'm working now, you can look for a job, go through the whole application process and do the interviews. And if they decide to hire you, they will just say, oh, you can come work for us next week and just get started and come in the office. So if yours is like the latter, and a lot of places are like this, just keep your faith that your situation can turn around in just a few days, and it will happen, especially if you're in a really difficult position with the job hunting rut and you feel like nothing is happening at the moment. The final thing I have to say for you is just keep having faith that you will manage to find a job. So many people are in the same boat as you, and the economy is just not that great at the moment. So best of luck to anyone looking for a job, and I'm sending you all of my best wishes and good luck for all of you, especially in the year 2023. Back then when I was looking for a job, in that video where I was struggling so hard, I just felt like I couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel, and it was just so difficult. And it was just really hard managing my emotions and having that good balance between sending 10 plus applications every day versus like having a break for yourself. And just know that taking a break is also really important with job applications because it is a really tough time. So I am sending all of my good wishes for you. And just think of it as a time to really test who you are as a person and seeing like what you really like and what you're really searching out of a job, and it's not just mindless applications. With that being said, again, good luck to all of you and sending you all so much love, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.